So next speaker is Pruthvi Shetty. He is a principal AI ML engineer at Twilio, where he helps build AI-powered tools for both internal teams and external customers. And his career includes roles at SAP Labs and Zap Labs and the Indian Institute of Science, where he gained experience in developing advanced AI and data-driven solutions. Pruthvi holds a master's degree in computer science from Indiana University with a focus on machine learning and data science. He's passionate about using AI to solve real-world challenges and drive innovation.
So before we start, just really quickly, how many of you are familiar with what RFPs are and you've used an RFP at some point in your life? Great. So what if I tell you there's a tool where it'll cut down your RFP response times by 99%. So what used to take you about 2 to 4 weeks, you can do that in minutes. So let's see how. Along this talk, we'll be covering the exact problem we have, the challenges with a straightforward AI solution, how we solved it at Twilio, and we'll seek the blessings of the demo god for a quick demo and see how that goes. Quick disclaimer, this is an internal tool. This is not a tool sold for customers, but hopefully this demo would help people who are hoping to build something in that direction. All right, so as most of you might be familiar, RFPs/RFIs/RFX security questionnaires, they're these long-form questionnaires going up to hundreds, sometimes thousands of questions, which need to be answered by SaaS companies in order to convert opportunities into leads, into customers. And what's the problem with this today? One, they can take from days to weeks, depending on how important the customer is, how big your commercial solutions team is. On average, we've seen about 9 people being the industry standard having to be involved with RFPs. And just because of the time and cost involved, companies don't end up accepting all the RFPs that come their way. They only do what they call qualified leads. And one of the stats we've seen across companies is RFPs are the origin for more than a third of the company's revenue. So it is pretty important. Now, when we think about how do we solve this with AI, the main challenges come as part of 4 main issues here. One, it's almost a solved problem where we could use an LLM's API like an OpenAI or a Claude, tag it in with some sort of a RAG and have it answer your questions. It's not too difficult now. But now when you think about answering hundreds of questions at scale for multiple customers, very easily you get rate limited. You answer a 15-question questionnaire, and the 16th one throws you an error. So we need to solve that. 2, you're using an online vector database, as we saw with Dr. Shim's presentation below. So any of the online vector databases would throttle your vector retrievals, because again, they have to make sure resources are utilized in a fair way. So how do we solve that? Third, in your vector database itself, your data can get stale over time. Your product features might improve. Your websites might be updated. You might deprecate some content. You don't want to communicate old, outdated content to your customers. And lastly, it needs to fit really well with your existing go-to-market processes, because the go-to-market team is the best coin-operated group of people you can work with, and they will not pick up a new tool and start using it unless it's compatible with what they have. Another quick fun fact, about 55% of the RFPs that you work on go on to the next level. So the more the RFPs you work on, the more chances of them converting and the more money your company would make. So coming to the meat of how we solve this. So our tool is called RFP Genie. I'll come to the Genie part later. But what we're doing here is we've built a platform which can plug into any LLM. So you could use an OpenAI, you could use Claude. We've built an offline RAG database to solve for the retrieval throttling problem. So you could use something like a FAISS from Meta or something like a ChromaDB or even a Quadrant. An auto embedding creation pipeline, which makes sure your data doesn't go stale and updates your offline embeddings at the cadence that you prefer. And the biggest novelty here is to not get rate limited. It provides an out-of-the-box batching and parallelization strategy where you can proverbially fly below the radar, so to say. So what's really happening here is OpenAI or Anthropic, they have two kinds of rate limits. One is the number of requests you can make to them per minute, which is what most people use. And the second, number of tokens you can send per minute. So we maximize on both these fronts, where we are taking advantage of both of this. And then we use an exponential back-off strategy to make repeated calls at random intervals, in which case the user doesn't see an error, but they're able to continuously process hundreds of requests while not violating the rate limits. Again, because the prompting is exposed to the user, you can customize this for each customer, for each industry, which we've seen was a big win with our go-to-market teams when they were able to do this with their customers. And it very easily fits into our existing workflows. So there's easy integrations with Salesforce. You can map the opportunity ID with that. You can very transparently see how this opportunity's life cycle carried over the course of its journey there. Again, fun facts. Enterprise companies answer about 273 RFPs every year. So your commercial solutions team is answering one RFP, at least one RFP, every working day of the year. So imagine the kind of volume that we're working with. So some impactful results we've gotten from this. The average response times of an RFP is way less than 10 minutes now. For one RFP, for a 600-question RFP, we're able to do that in 8 minutes. The average cost of answering that for the LLM itself is less than $10. And again, we are talking about comparing this with something which took 2 to 4 weeks and 9 people on a team. And the next question is, okay, how good was this? So we've run this pilot over hundreds of RFPs within Twilio today over the last 1 year, and we've seen it does a really great job at answering about 80% of the questions really well, to a point where they don't even have to make any edits or very minor edits. There's always a tricky 15 to 20% of questions of RFPs, which the sales team can now actually spend their time on, where we actually need their expertise, and that opens up all of their time to do that. We'll quickly jump into a demo. So this is what the tool looks like. I can select, and this is again a bare bones demo I've made for this event, but you would ideally select your product here. I can take requests for fictional companies from the group, if there's any. Or I can, if there are any Office fans here, I can go Dunder Mifflin. And again, so this is where I was talking about the customer context, where the answers would be personalized for the user. So here I can go in and say, Dunder Mifflin is a paper company and are interested in our SMS solutions. They are considering a competitor, Genesis, for instance. So they have this context as to how to answer them. So I'll add a sample RFP. This has about 25 questions. But once we load that, the system prompt is shown to the user, where you can see what's the instruction that is being given to the LLM. So here we are saying, hey, you're a B2B sales expert on communications. You specialize in go-to-market strategy and enablement and so on. And this part might be appreciated by those of you who work closely with RFPs. RFPs are very diverse in their structure and form. Sometimes the questions aren't even questions, they're sentences. So it's up to you to find out what are they actually trying to ask and answer that to the best of their ability. So here, for this demo, most of these are questions, but here, basically, you'd be able to say, if this is what they're asking, this is what they actually mean. And that's it. And you can hit start. So in the first phase, it's interpreting these questions into LLM-friendly questions. And soon after, it'll start answering. And we are done. The totals for this demo was 25 cents. It took us 14 seconds to do it. And this is the final result. So you have the original question, the response from the RFP. You can also go in and see the interpreted question if you want to see what's happening under the hood, as well as the sources. So this was a much requested feature where the go-to-market team can actually see where the question is being answered from. And that's it. They can download this and send it off to the customer or collaborate with the team on refining the last 20%. There's one last thing about this. So this is a platform, as I said before, right? So we aren't just limited to RFPs. So over the last few months, we've actually expanded the scope of this and embedded it into not just sales, but also our support pillar, our operations pillar, and so on. So use cases like compliance. Our compliance team used to do quarter-long compliance checks, which is now being automated to be completed within days. Same platform. The RAG is different. The agent does a different thing. Sales teams use something called Gong to collect call transcripts, and leadership always wants to know, hey, what are we talking about? What is the customer asking for? Who are the competitors being brought up? Same platform, put in Gong transcripts, we can answer those questions. Again, the same thing across Salesforce with sales notes, the same thing on support, on Zendesk tickets, and the same thing to identify fraud from server logs. So if there's one thing I'd love for anyone to take from this, that this is a very neat way to build a bulk AI processing engine and not worry about having to run an expensive online database or being able to, or having to get rate limited. So that was my demo for today.